So today we're going to talk about what is emotion/empathy coaching. So emotion and empathy coaching, what is that? That's what we're going to look at today. So first of all, I want to break down kind of maybe the fundamentals of what this is about. So empathy/emotion coaching is kind of my main kind of base as a coach. And what that focuses on is facilitating self-regulation and resilience in my clients to improve their ability to solve their own problems. So I can help with that. If you're really running into problems, I'm going to support you with that. But ultimately, what this approach to coaching looks like is helping somebody regulate themselves and process their own emotions to improve emotional intelligence and to be aligned in what they want to do and where they want to go. And especially men, I hear this a lot from men. What's the point looking at my feelings? They're getting in the way, maybe they're a sign of weakness, they suck, etc., etc. The reason I focus on the emotions is because I think the emotions point more to the root of the challenge that's actually having you stuck. So some of the absolute building blocks of this approach are that a lot of it is going to be me empathizing and validating your experience and your emotions, right, as a coach. And a lot of people say this kind of looks like therapy, and there are certainly skill overlaps there. It isn't therapy. The goal is to kind of help you understand and recognize your emotions better, so then you can use that understanding to then reconnect at what matters in you and move forward. Okay, so emotional intelligence, in my opinion, is the absolute foundation to leading a fulfilling life. So often emotion and empathy coaching is used a lot in educational environments, a lot with kids. I would argue it's actually super important to be used more with adults, because I think that there's a big misconception that a lot of adults are fantastic at emotional regulation, and in my experience that is certainly not true. But a lot of younger people definitely have some really intense emotions, and that can really throw them off being able to stay on track with their goals. So I believe that there are two main pillars to this idea, is that we have to process and deflate the emotion that's kind of coming up and taking up all the space in the head, but then there's also the skills aspect of how they navigate life, right? It's really hard to help people focus on this skills aspect without validating and processing the emotion and helping them self-regulate. So my approach as a coach is if you want to earn more money, you want to get a better job, you want to have better relationships, you want to build a company, all of that comes from your emotional intelligence. If you have better emotional intelligence, you can connect with people better. That can lead to networking better. Helping you navigate your own social anxiety is going to help you feel like you can give more to things you really care about, right? Being very socially anxious is exhausting, okay? And I think it's really important to think about this when we think about developing solid foundations for being a person. So something I really notice with technology specifically is that when we get dysregulated, we lean into technology. It's like the mental health pacifier, okay? It shuts up the noise, but it ultimately has this kind of anchor of emotion, stay the same or even get bigger, okay? And that really weighs us all down, because there's nowhere for it to go. No one's understanding us. No one's giving us space to feel that stuff, to then work on the goals, okay? So in my coaching program, what we do is we process your emotions first. We understand who you are first, so then we can get to those concrete goals you want. Because if you're overwhelmed, you're stressed, your nervous system's blaring, threat, danger, danger, you can't make any good rational decisions for yourself, right? When we're trapped in a corner and our fight or flight is chronically blasting up, we have chronic stress, we are only going to make decisions that we can't really sit with and digest and have deep, thoughtful connections made about it, which is why I always start with the emotional processing. Some people don't want to do that. And to those people, in my opinion, they will stay stuck. If they do not look at their feelings and understand why they feel like they do and why they are where they are, they will not be able to change. In my opinion, changing comes from processing your feelings. And that's why I use empathy emotion coaching techniques, validating your emotions, digging into ambiguity, really like trying to understand you as a person at the core of it, because like I can throw surface solutions at you and like some of them might be helpful and might be applicable to you, but ultimately what's going to pay you more than anything else going forward from our time working together, if you did work with me, is the self-resilience and emotional intelligence that we work to develop. Like there are definitely instances for like short-term solutions, but often I feel like as a coach, like I'm doing a disservice to a client if I'm not addressing how they feel about things, how they feel in our relationship working together, how they feel in what we're working towards, right? And I think a lot of people have the expectation that they're going to come into session and I'm going to fix all of their problems. I'm not with them 24 hours a day, right? I have an hour with them a week. And I think it's really important in the hour to process feelings and create a better emotional foundation for them to face their own life challenges with. Because really, like, we don't want to be in coaching forever, right? We don't want to have to show up forever and talk about this stuff forever. We want to like move forward, right? And how we move forward is we look at it and we feel it. And sometimes we have to sit with it and be in it. And that takes time sometimes. But we want to develop resilience. We want to develop emotional intelligence. We ultimately want to grow, right? Anyone who's ever engaged in coaching, me as a client and as a coach, I've always wanted to move, right? That's been my draw to coaching. And my empathy kind of emotion coaching style is orientated on feeling first, then doing, okay? Because if we don't know how we feel when we do, we will pick up all of these extra weights in every motion we take forward. And ultimately, that's what makes us stop. So we need to look at those emotional weights. We need to feel them. We need to process them. We need to feel accepted and understood, or we can't experiment, which is required for change. You know, often a lot of the research points to this being really useful for kids because kids don't understand themselves as much. But I am a huge proponent that, like, in the world we live in, we don't have enough time to be with ourselves to like develop these skills naturally. Okay, which is why I kind of point a lot of my services more at adults, because adults actually don't have a lot of space and time to process and understand their feelings in their busy lives. So that is what empathy/emotion coaching is. If you want to work with me, my contact information is in the description. I really think building out your understanding of yourself is how you be what you are, and being what you are is more important than anything. So that's where I'm going to leave it today. I've been Will. You've been wonderful. Take care of yourself. Go out there feeling. Good luck.